Under U.S. Code Title 42, Part G, in Section 265, with the approval of the President, the Surgeon General has the power to prohibit foreign immigration in order to avert the dangerous spread of communicable disease. This was enacted in 1944 and used in March of 2020 when the Trump administration issued a public health order calling for the rapid expulsion of illegal immigrants and asylum seekers to protect against the spread of COVID-19. But the borders remain open, as they have been for years. Millions of people have migrated into the U.S. illegally to cash in on the robbery of America's wealth and the destruction of our society. In April of 2021, we exposed a massive child trafficking operation being operated by the federal government in concert with Catholic charity organizations. In March of 2022, the Biden administration formally exempted unaccompanied children from being deported under the Title 42 policy. Last month, a whistleblower from Operation Artemis testified before Congress that the U.S. government has been acting as middleman in a multi-billion-dollar child trafficking black market. Title 42 is set to expire this week, and U.S. immigration facilities are already at 150% capacity. So the tens of thousands of illegal immigrants waiting at the southern border will just have to be taken care of at the expense of the U.S. taxpayer during the biggest financial crisis in U.S. history. If this doesn't make sense to you, then you need to realize that America is under attack. Last weekend, 2 separate terrorist attacks were carried out in Texas by members of the same prison gang syndicate. And if the U.S. government cared about keeping the peace and the rule of law, then this sort of activity would obviously catalyze stricter border policies. But our government isn't doing that. They are opening the borders while U.S. judges let loose violent criminals because America is under attack. Michael Yon has been reporting from the Darien province in Panama at a place known as the Darien Gap, where U.S.-funded invasion camp Lajas Blancas has been processing hordes of military-age members of the Communist Chinese Party.
Michael, can you speak more on why you suppose these are spies as opposed to simply economic migrants?
So how are all these people getting these passports? And how are they showing up with wads of cash? They have a lot of money, these Chinese coming through. They take a special route through Darien Gap. They take boat routes, and then they'll walk about 2 days through the jungle through a much safer route. It's still a little bit difficult, but it's nothing like the epic real Darien Gap route through the Mountain of Death. And all, there's actually Montaña de la Muerte, the Mountain of Death. They don't go through any of that stuff. And none of the Chinese women coming through ever report being raped. All sorts of women are raped, young and old, and children and everything else. But not the Chinese.
If this doesn't make sense to you, then you need to realize that America is under attack. In the book Unrestricted Warfare, senior military advisors of the Communist Chinese wrote that the only way for China to defeat the U.S. is by deploying several levels of unconventional warfare. Direct military confrontation would not succeed. You can call it communism, you can call it globalism. Whatever it is, now has complete control over the U.S. federal government and is waging war against every single American. Life as we know it is quickly coming to an end.
America's economy is approaching a critical tipping point.
We do need to raise the debt ceiling to avoid economic calamity.
The US government has hit its debt ceiling of $31.4 trillion, causing a tense standoff. Congress has to vote to raise the debt ceiling. Republicans, who control the House of Representatives, are using this power as a bargaining chip to rewrite the budget.
Speaker McCarthy offered a very different way forward. He's proposed deep cuts that I believe are going to hurt American families.
I would hope that he'd be willing to negotiate for the next 2 weeks so we could actually solve this problem and not take America on the brink.
Neither side wants to back down, but if they don't, catastrophe looms.
Not lifting the debt ceiling would be a kamikaze act that would threaten the health and viability of the American economy with disastrous spillover effects for the global economy.
So what is the debt ceiling? And why does reaching it mean possible economic disaster?
The debt ceiling, which is really uniquely an American thing, refers to the total amount of money that the federal government, is allowed to borrow. It's a political creation. Inevitably, government debt goes up over time. The size of the economy is getting bigger. The government is regularly running deficits. So you would expect that debt would go up over time. But because you have this prescribed debt ceiling, from time to time, the government's borrowing hits that limit. When that happens, the thing that has to occur is that the debt ceiling has to be raised. The point is that America has incurred all of these debts because of all of its ongoing obligations, whether to paying government salaries or to paying retired pensioners their Social Security payments, to paying for health insurance, to paying for ongoing government programs. If they don't increase the debt ceiling, the government will not be able to make those spending obligations. It would only be a matter of time before the government would very likely default on its debts. That would send shock waves through global markets. It would fundamentally undermine the position of the dollar.
The Outlet Mall near Dallas.
We start hearing rock, rock, rock.
The Atlanta Medical Office.
All I seen was police cars and SWAT and everybody just pulling up, back to back, back to back.
Neighbors shot in Cleveland, Texas. A Sweet 16 birthday party in Alabama. A Louisville bank. And an elementary school in Nashville.
How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them?
The Gun Violence Archive counts more mass shootings so far this year than days, 199. That includes any shooting with at least 4 victims, not including a shooter.
I've been studying this for 40 years, and I've never seen a year like this.
Criminology professor James Fox oversees a database at Northeastern University that keeps track of deadly mass shootings.
Why are we seeing so many mass killings this year?
Well, we have several factors. We have many more guns in the hands of Americans. There's been a large increase in gun sales since COVID. And because of COVID, many Americans are suffering economically and emotionally. And this country is quite divided. People are angry, and they're taking it out on innocent strangers.
The president said it's up to Congress to act. Is that likely to happen?
While last year President Biden helped pass some substantial bipartisan gun legislation, he's repeatedly urged Congress to do more, including banning assault weapons. But it's unlikely that Republicans who control the House will agree to that restriction or any further changes to gun laws.
For communities torn apart by gun violence like Allen, Texas, a fear nothing will change.
We just go through this over and over, and nothing gets done.